Welcome to the Braver Angels podcast, a new way of talking politics. I'm your host for today, David Lapp, co-founder of Braver Angels. I'm joined today by two guests, two Braver Angels members who attended the Trump rally in Washington, D.C. on January the 6th and witnessed some of the events on Capitol Hill that day. Chrissy Koach lives in Northern Virginia and has been a dedicated Braver Angels member since 2018, when she was a red delegate to the first ever Braver Angels convention. Tom Cook lives in Quarryville, Pennsylvania, my native Lancaster County, and is one of the newest Braver Angels members. Tom just joined yesterday. Welcome to you both. So Chrissy, I'm going to begin with you and we'll just jump right into it. What did you see on Capitol Hill on January the 6th?
Okay, hi. Well, I wrote actually some information down because I feel very nervous about talking, but what I saw from the minute that I got onto the metro with a friend was really some upbeat, happy people. The environment was really pleasant. People were helping each other push the right buttons to get their tickets. There was just this general sense of positive anticipation. There were flags like LGBTQ for Trump was flying alongside Don't Tread on Me. There were Chinese American Republicans, assortment of states that had come together to be represented. I saw a lot of families, a lot of patriotic costumes, and the American flag everywhere. They primarily looked like hardworking, blue-collar, middle-class, white people, but there were also a good handful of Blacks, as I said, Asians, and other minorities. My experience was that people of every skin color were represented in attendance as well as in presentation.
And then, so you were at the rally that was in the morning, and then tell us what happened. Just describe to us the transition from the rally onto the protests on Capitol Hill and what you saw and were a part of there.
Okay, well, there was a sectioned off area where you kind of you had to get a ticket to be able to enter into this space. And I don't know what the number was, probably 1,000. And there were 8 porta potties on the side of that fence. So there were the crowd, 2 big screens and porta potties, 8 porta potties there. Donald Trump Jr. was one of the, it was hard for me to hear because I was outside of that group. So I really could not hear everything that was said. But what I did catch, my friend and I kept trying to get up closer. And what I did hear Donald Trump Jr. saying was how proud he was of us, how proud we should be of ourselves, that how proud we should be of ourselves that they blocked everything up. They shuttered everything, and not one building was damaged, not one business was looted, not one person was hurt. That we were we were good. we were not acting in the way that they anticipated we would act. And this huge roar came up from the crowd. Like, we were all so proud of ourselves. Like, this is how we do it. We do it legally. We do it lawfully. We do it in an organized way. We protest. We have our voices heard. We don't hurt anybody. Then President Trump was supposed to speak around 11, and by 11:30, I had to go to the bathroom really badly. And so we knew we couldn't get those 8 porta potties, so we had to find somewhere else to go. There were 8 more porta potties by the Capitol, and I heard later that it was like a a 2-hour wait in line to go to the bathroom. We went and bought coffee at a nearby bakery. And so by being a customer, we could use their bathroom. And by the time we were able to get through that, we were coming out and he was already speaking. But again, President Trump was speaking, but wasn't able to hear what he was saying. There were people who had their phones hooked up to microphones so people could hear. And there were little groups that were just listening because they knew they couldn't get close enough to hear. He was rambling about some things. And I was like, as I often do, I'm like, come on, fast forward. But I did hear one of the things that he said was, and I have not double checked his, I haven't gone on to anything since then. I haven't looked at any news. I haven't read anything. I'm just asking my husband to filter what I need to know. And so I don't know in his entirety what he said, but I do know that he was emphasizing have our voices heard. He was emphasizing be loud. Nowhere did I see weapons. Nowhere did I hear or feel aggression. The only time that I felt fear before the tear gas started being thrown, the only time I felt fear was when there was a homeless man who was screaming at a vendor that he was going to kill him if he didn't get out of his space. That was the scariest moment I had.
And then fast forward a little bit here, because at some point you notice the crowd start moving towards Capitol Hill. And so you and your friend also start going towards Capitol Hill.
Right. There were just little bits of people, like maybe 10 or 20 here, 10 or 15 walking this way on several different streets. We saw them coming down different corners. And so, because I had to go to the bathroom, we got a close view of things. And we walked up, and there were little 2-foot dividers, but they were open at one spot so you could go in.
You're now on Capitol Hill?
We walked through the parking lot. Yes, we walked through the parking lot. And again, just a lot of American flags. A lot of, kooky people are always there too. So a lot of kooky people with their megaphones saying their things. A lot of evangelists that embarrassed me as a Christian. Because I would love things to, stay separate, separation of church and state. And we were walking up the sidewalk, and we heard what sounded like, we heard a pop, and we knew, well, that's not a gun. What is that? Is somebody setting off fireworks? And so as we walked closer, we started hearing it a little bit more. It turns out what we were hearing was the tear gas. And upon arrival at the crowd, a lot of people were just really confused. They're like, why are they throwing tear gas at us? Why are they throwing tear gas? And there were about 10 that were thrown. And then around canister number 12, somebody threw one back toward the Capitol. It still landed in the crowd, I think. But then I was like, what's going on? I was like, this isn't what I signed up for. This wasn't what I was expecting. And there was a great big partition, scaffolding that was covered by canvas. And so there's this tiny little aisle going up the steps, and it was blocked, and people were standing there, and people were kind of hanging close to the scaffolding. And I don't remember the exact timeline of things, but they started ripping the canvas off the scaffolding and climbing in. They eventually breached the steps, and I really was like, something is really not right. Something is really not going down the way I expected it to go. And so we took a few steps back. We also were like, we don't want to get so close that the tear gas can affect us. Then I think everybody was kind of like, everybody in my group was kind of like that, like, what exactly is going on? And one man came running over to our side and said, come on, we're going over to the east side. Everybody follow me. We're gonna enter through the east side of the building. And this is our house and they can't take it from us. And we're going to take it back. Let's go get them. And I was just kind of still like, what are you talking about? And then I realized like something really bad, like just, I started to pray and I was like, something is really not right here. And I turned around and this group of guys were kind of looking as confused as me. And I said, and I don't know where it came from in me, because I'm not a leader personality in my opinion, but I said, because they were saying we have a, what's it called? The P word. We have a permit to be here. That was part of what he was yelling to, was we have a permit to be here. And I turned around and I said, we have a permit to be here, but we do not have a permit to hurt anyone. We do not have a permit to do anything illegal. And I didn't see anybody follow him. So my feeling was that the majority who were there were kind of watching and in shock, that those who had gotten up front were so out of control.
Yeah. And then after that, did you witness some of the violence that was going on the steps of the Capitol Hill, or what happened then?
Yeah, while we were standing there before the breach, one man during the tear gas, one man, we heard what must have, I thought it was tear gas, but a man came running through. They were guiding a man through. He had blood just dripping down his face, and a woman was following behind with her daughters and was crying. She said he was shot in the face with a rubber bullet. So they were making way for the people to let him out. And I haven't been able to completely process it all yet, but when they did the breach, that was when I was like, we need to leave. We need to leave. So we were heading back, and I did see a man walking with a pitchfork and something tied around the top of his pitchfork, and he was carrying the pitchfork as though it was his flag. And we were going the other way.
Tom, I want to ask you now, what did you see on Capitol Hill on January the 6th?
Yeah, thank you, Chrissy, for sharing that. It's interesting because I think the two of us pieced together what actually happened that day. And I think you establish the fact that the breach and the violence that took place while President Trump was still speaking. And even at the end of it, while the majority of the group was still at the ellipse. Like you said, you had to go to the bathroom, so you were outside our group. So I went to the event by myself, and just yesterday found out there was busloads of people that went from Lancaster County, but never heard about it. And I got there at the Metro around 6:15 in the morning, and hopped on the Metro. Like Chrissy said, it was just a group of very just Americans that were proud to be at their capital. I met a group from Pittsburgh that had driven all night. I met a fellow from Long Island who was there. That was just the people sitting with me on the Metro. And we got off the Metro, and at the Charles Place exit, I think is what it's called, near Chinatown. And then you walk basically straight over to the ellipse. and DC was a ghost town. It was empty. The streets had all been blocked off by the police, just huge amounts of space. The only people we passed were those that were homeless, that were sitting on the grates to keep warm with their tents, that were sleeping on the grates, that is. And we walked down to the ellipse. And when we got to the ellipse, before we kind of turned the corner and were able to get in front of the White House part of it, we were on the side. You could already see the line of people that had been there probably since 5 in the morning or 4 in the morning, that had already formed to get into the ellipse through the VIP security check. And despite what people said, I didn't hear about this event from President Trump. I just had heard about it from different conservative media, and I signed up for it through the people that had organized it, Women for Trump or something like that. And they had said, if you want to get into the ellipse, everything's gonna be taken from you, your backpack, your flags. So I just stuffed some food in my coat. I didn't have anything to drink. And a lot of people were like that. They were kind of prepared to go in there. Well, it turns out this event was put together so last minute that logistically it wasn't really pulled off that well. And it took them forever, starting at 7 o'clock, to get even a small crowd into the ellipse. And like Chrissy said, majority of the porta potties were in the ellipse for 1,000 people, and then 200,000 people were using four or eight porta potties on the other side of the street, or on the street and up to the Washington Monument. So
did you make it into the main area where President Trump was speaking, or were you on the outside?
Yeah, so I eventually got separated from the group from Pittsburgh, and I joined up talking to a group from Texas, from Arkansas, and again, the event was not logistically well done. There was no one on a bullhorn saying, okay, here's how it's going to work. Go over here. We're going to let you in one at a time. The rest of you, I'm sorry, you're not going to get in. So just get comfortable and stand. Everybody was trying to figure out, do I keep going or not? Anyways, right. I ended
Tom, just for the sake of time.
Yes, I'm sorry. So I ended up right in front of the Capitol, right behind the Jumbotron that was behind me, and between the big ellipse area was between me and the Capitol. I could not get into the ellipse along with 200,000 other people, and we were packed shoulder to shoulder. And like Chrissy said, it was hard to hear even there because of the echo. There was a big echo between the Jumbotron and the stage. So yes, we heard a little bit of what they said, but the whole idea of President Trump telling us to go march on the Capitol is so out of context, out of reality. It's hilarious because he was late to speak. We were cold. We had been standing there for 5 hours. Our backs were hurting. And we just wanted to walk to the Capitol. And 10 minutes into his speech, we wanted him done. And he just kept rambling on and on and on. And so Chrissy was outside our group. So I actually have pictures on my phone that have timestamps. And as you know, with a 200,000 group, it takes a while to get them moving. So even after Trump had finished, it took us like 20 minutes before we could get the group to even start moving down the street. And it's a long walk to the Capitol from the ellipse. So we did not get to the ellipse until 2:45. So very peaceful walk. The huge crowd stopped to let a parade of police cars cross the street. Literally, We're standing there while 7 police cars go across us. And yeah, like Chrissy said, there's knuckleheads in the group that jump out and say, why are you stopping for the police? They should stop for us. There's always going to be people on the fringe. And so we got there, and by the time we had gotten there, all the bicycle racks had been knocked over. They had literally, they didn't even want us on the lawn of the Capitol, which there wasn't enough room for the whole group to be there at the Capitol. We would have had to go back into the Washington Monument. And so by the time we got there, it was the Capitol, the lawn was open. And by the time we got there, I think all of the violence had already finished and was almost being done. And at that point, I think was when the people were being led into the Capitol to walk through it. And Congress had already been evacuated. And like I had shared, our phones weren't working really well. We were getting text intermittently. I don't care if President Trump would have made 30 announcements, we would have never heard them. And he didn't need to make an announcement to go home and be peaceful. We were peaceful. And like Chrissy said, the crowd was America. It was a majority white. It was 16% black, 16% Hispanic, 6% Asian. It represented America. And when I got there, a group was already in the process of dismantling the hangman's noose. And in fact, I walked over the pieces of it, of the scaffolding of the, whatever you call that, the whole contraption. And we were throwing away the noose. And the crowd, as I've told you, we were the National Guard. We were there to stop people from being violent because that was the majority. The majority of protesters were not there to commit violence. We were there to get a visceral feel of our government and be there at the Capitol when a major event in this country was about to take place. And we wanted the Congress to see us, smell us, know that America was here. And we wanted them to make a good and heartfelt effort to debate the elections that took place in a number of these battleground states that Democrats and Republicans were concerned about. And that was the majority crowd. So when I got there, I eventually made it up to the Capitol steps. I helped the disabled veteran who lost a leg to get over there's a wall that kind of between the lawn and the Capitol steps. And as I told you, as I'm walking up the lawn, I pass an elderly couple sitting in their wheelchairs, wrapped for the cold, with their son or daughter, just sitting there watching the events. I saw children in cute knit hats, women in pink Trump hats. And by the time we got up there, the flashbang grenades and the tear gas was almost done because they realized the crowd that had eventually gotten there was not their threat. And I had heard that there was a child that had their hearing was hurt by one of the flashbang grenades because there were children up there. And basically, we just stood there for hours. And eventually, my back couldn't take it anymore. And I just left and was going to go back to the metro. But I stopped and talked to people from all over this country. The atmosphere when I left was not an atmosphere that needed the National Guard. It was not an atmosphere of chaos or hate. It was an atmosphere of Americans at their Capitol wanting to have participated, but the event turned out a lot worse than anybody thought.
Yeah. Tom, did you enter the Capitol that day?
I did not, but I talked to a number of people that had been in the Capitol. And as you can see from the videos that are out there, the people that were let into the Capitol that were going through the rope lines, taking pictures, they were told the Congress has left, and that crowd turned around and walked back out. And I think that's where that was some of the people that I had met that had just walked out of the Capitol through the same doors that were propped open. I mean, there's literally video of people propping doors open and just slowly walking orderly into the Capitol.
I want to ask you, thank you, Tom. I want to ask you, Chrissy. So from both of your accounts, you were both there to attend the rally and to protest peacefully. And that's what you both did. Clearly, there were some people there with other intentions and who rioted and acted violently. What do you say to those people who were there who rioted and acted violently? Chrissy?
I don't want to hate them, but they ruined it. They ruined it. They make all of us look bad at a time when a very small group of people made a very large percentage of our country look bad, and shame on them. And I hope they're punished. I hope they get the minute that I saw the police. I did see a police officer trip, and that was when we were like, no, we turned to leave. Anyone who hurts, our police, our civil servants, punish them.
Tom, what do you say to those who acted violently and rioted that day?
I say they should be punished. And like I said to you before, if the crowd, the National Guard, had been there, we would have taken those thugs out by their necks and not allowed them to do what they did. And it's sad that the narrative that is just fed to the public is so broad, and the brushstroke is so broad for all of the people that were there peacefully to protest, who represented 20, 30 people who voted for President Trump back home. The people there represented millions of voters. And yet I called WGAL, my local TV station, and did an interview with them. And then I called just yesterday, I called our Lancaster newspaper and said, I was there. Would you like to hear what the larger context is? And the reporter, God bless them, I know they work so hard. He said, well, that story's already been covered. And so I went through all of their articles on the Capitol riots. And there was one story written about Lancaster County people that had gone to the rally, and none of it was actually personal interviews. It was just stuff he got off their Facebook pages. And the narrative of his opening line of his story is this. There, later in the morning, they would attend a rally and hear a speech from President Donald Trump in which he asked the crowd to help him overturn the election by marching in force against the Capitol. That is the narrative. And I told him, I said, you guys need to push back against the megaphone of the global media, of the CNNs, of Hollywood, that are painting Trump voters as evil. And as
Tom, if I could ask you, why were, and I want to ask each of you this, and respond briefly to this in a minute or so. Why were you there that day? What were you there to protest?
David, that's why I say I got so much on my heart. I'm not a fan of President Trump. I didn't lap him up like the media did before he went down that escalator. The music industry loved him for his lifestyle. The public loved him for his reality shows. But as soon as he went down the escalator and said, I'm going to run for president, it's like he had a body snatcher event. Someone else took over him, according to the media. So I'm just an American that saw a sitting American president get haymaker after haymaker thrown at him for 4 years, from the media, from the entertainment industry and from the Democratic leadership, and even from his own government, and have not even have a chance to come up for air. And yet, there are pages and pages of stuff that his administration has accomplished for foreign policy, for people of color, for education, various things.
And it's about 10 more seconds on this.
Yeah, I'm sorry, David. It's so hard to summarize, but I was not there to overturn an election. I was not there as a follower of Trump. They use that word so many times. I mean, they don't call people who voted for President Obama followers of Obama. And I was there. And let me make this point because it wasn't made. I think 60% of the people at the event have never been to a Trump event, including me. And Chrissy. We were not.
Chrissy was raising her hand. That's me, she's saying.
We were not the Trump lemmings or whatever you want to call. We were American voters who saw what President Trump has done good for this country until this virus hit. And it just.
And so in one sentence, you weren't there to overthrow the results of the election. You were there to.
I was there to to redress my government for grievances for 4 years of not allowing our government to function, to investigate a president on false information for colluding with Russians and then impeaching him. And And
Tom, if I could just, I want to get Chrissy on this and get her. And in about 1 minute, Chrissy, why were you there that day?
Well, Nikki Haley said once, what started with political correctness has morphed into cancel culture. And I voted for Trump in 2016 because it was like, I got nothing to lose because look what is going on over there. And then he earned my vote. I felt like over the course of what he did over the past 4 years, he earned my vote. I was there. I just wanted to spend time around people that I thought were like-minded. I'm in a really, really blue environment. My church is closed. My Bible study group meets virtually. I wanted to be with people, and I wanted to be lifted up and just encouraged. And I had been told that these were always very upbeat, positive experiences. I wanted to be just around some like-minded people and exhale a little bit.
Thank you. As you know, as you've probably been following the news, just like the rest of us. So we're doing this podcast on Thursday, January the 14th. And as we're doing this podcast, there are reports, FBI reports, that there are armed protests being planned for this weekend and up to and including Inauguration Day on state capitals and on Inauguration Day. What would you say to anyone who is entertaining the idea of political violence? Chrissy?
Oh, nuts. Can Tom go first on that one?
Sure. Yeah, Tom, you go.
David, maybe let me just back up to what you're asking. President Trump could have said 100 times until he was blue in the face that I do not agree with the violent white supremacists. He could have stood at the Capitol and said, I do not want violence. Those tactical, violent, militaristic people would have pushed him aside and said, I'm sorry, President Trump, you've gone soft. We are going to take over our government. There have been a fringe group of people forever, with George Bush, with Clinton, with Obama. And yes, maybe they took a part of President Trump to motivate them, but they would have found anything they could to motivate them. So everybody has to preface their speech with, I denounce the violence. That's a given. We denounce the violence. Every American that was there in the majority denounces the violence. But let's get past that. We were there not for violence, and yet we have to keep repeating it. And I tell people it's almost like they want us to stand on the steps of the Capitol, put a sign around our neck saying, I was wrong. I was wrong. I shouldn't have voted for Trump. He's a bad man. And please forgive me. And it doesn't, is that going to work? Probably not. How many times do we need to say we don't agree with violent approaches? And you know what? It's not going to stop Timothy McVeigh from blowing up a building in Oklahoma. It's not going to stop any of this. It's going to be people talking and forming the majority of Americans that are coming together that are going to stop the violence. Not shutting up a president, not just going back to Republicans and Democrats. Sorry, David. I'm
Thank you. I hear the passion in your voice.
I'm just so frustrated. Every Republican that got up to debate the impeachment had to preface their speech with, I did not agree with the violence. Because if they didn't, they would have been shouted down by the Democrats.
And to you, that's just a given. Of course, I denounce the violence, is what you're saying. Yeah. Chrissy, and let me ask you, you can respond to that, or I also want to ask you both, there's been a lot of discussion, as Tom alluded to, about the role of President Trump in all of this. Let me ask you, Chrissy, what role do you hold President Trump, what responsibility, if any, do you believe President Trump bears for the violence that occurred on January the 6th?
I don't know, because I have not listened to the speech. I don't know. I do feel that there is responsibility, that to those who much is given, much is expected. I don't think the level of reaction that he's, I don't think that, can I start over? I'm going to start over. I think every leader carries and bears some responsibility for the people who are under them, influenced them by them. I don't think that he is entirely responsible. I think there is hate all over the place, and I make no excuses for anyone who chooses violence in their anger, but fear and anger are very close together, and one is really, really easy to communicate, and one is not. And the question that I think needs to be asked by Democrats and progressives is what is so bad over here that looks more appealing than what we're offering? And if they could have those conversations, there might be some hope for change. President Trump did make a statement at the White House. I haven't had a chance to watch that either, but he could denounce, absolutely. He could denounce more firmly and better. I think we're beyond that being of any, he's just been so, I don't think he could say or do anything that would help anyone.
Tom, let me ask you, and just briefly, because I want to move on then to the question of how can we move forward together, but briefly, what responsibility, if any, do you believe President Trump bears for the violence that occurred on January 6th?
Yeah. Well, Chrissy, I'll tell you, his speech did not implore us to go as a mob and attack the Capitol. Like I said, 10 minutes in, we wanted him to just shut up because we were cold and our backs were killing us. And his subsequent videos that he didn't, go home, no violence, it didn't matter. Does Trump bear responsibility for his actions in the sense of, well, I tell people, I didn't listen to his speeches for the past 4 years, other than maybe the State of the Union. I didn't read his tweets. because I don't like his personality. I don't like his braggadocio, the whatever. He's a realtor. he blows things up. So but I know people on the fringe will use it as a method, as food for their fodder. But is he responsible? No. Every human being is responsible for their own actions. And President Trump, just like when Timothy McVeigh blew up Oklahoma, was there a leader in charge that was responsible for what he did? No, because it was his own actions. And I don't know how to get that across to people. Yes, President Trump did not get reelected, mostly because he didn't stop talking. The mental anguish of people that actually listened to his tweets every day and there was people that said they would commit suicide if he was elected, is real. And I understand that he needed to go for that. But it's not because of his saying, go storm the Capitol. It's just because they just don't like his tone in word of speech. But no, he is not responsible, and this impeachment effort is going to further take the fringe and inflame them even more. And I just want to ask the representative who was on the call last night. I don't understand why he voted to impeach President Trump.
You're talking about Representative Dean Phillips from Minnesota.
Yes. His vote would not have mattered as far as he being impeached. He was going to be impeached by the majority. And he could have expressed a willingness to start healing the divide by not voting for this impeachment. And I don't understand why he didn't do that.
So let's talk about this question of how can we move forward together as reds and blues, conservatives, progressives, independents. How do we move forward together? President-elect Biden will be President Biden on January 20th. How do we move forward together? Who wants to start off with that?
Chrissy?
I think I can. Every single time that there's a close election, the winner is so arrogant and prideful in my eyes that we won, yeah. And in my lifetime of paying attention to politics, I have yet to hear a president or see action at the government level saying, wow, that was a close one. And I'm still going to listen to the concerns of the other side. And I'm very afraid from what I hear people about to enter power saying. They are so focused on going even further with what they want that they are leaving 50% of the country. They're leaving us behind, or they want to cancel us, punish us, make us get in line, make us follow what they say. And I don't feel that if my person is in authority, I don't feel that way about them. If I don't like what they say or do, I just go somewhere else. If they don't like what I say or do, I need to be canceled, or what's that word? Like they're talking about some of the stuff I've seen is they want to like retrain Republican brains. And
Chrissy, what steps would you like to see from President Biden?
That's a hard question to answer because I don't think that he's really, I feel that I forget the word. I feel like he's kind of a puppet. He's just not puppet, but I don't think that he's going to be the one that's in charge. I think that I don't think he's going to be in charge, or if he is, it's not for very long. And everyone knew that. If he came to my house, what would I say?
While you're thinking about that, let me ask you, Tom, particularly at a citizen to citizen level, if you're talking to if you're thinking about your neighbors in Lancaster County who voted differently than you, how can we move forward together as we, the people, as citizens?
Right. David, I think a first step, and a majority of the public just wants to vote once a year and then go about their lives. But for those involved in politics and those on the other side, a humbleness, just saying, okay, we see it. We see what happened to this administration over 4 years. Unprecedented persecution, laughter at a man going down an escalator running for president, impeachment calls from the get-go. We need a humble admission from the people who voted for Hillary Clinton and Biden. I'm not talking, because there was a lot of Democrats that voted for Hillary that then voted for President Trump this year, because they saw the deception. They saw there's people on good on each side in Charlottesville being twisted and used over and over and over and over again to say that President Trump was a racist. That is the group that needs to at least admit to us that it went overboard. It went way overboard. And it wasn't just the political leaders playing the game. It was also the people that voted, talking to us self-righteously that, I'm sorry, we can't have a dialogue with you because you are so far into these conspiracy theories that we just can't talk to you. You don't base anything on facts. David, that's the mentality of people on the other side, some people on the other side, that we are so far gone as people that voted for President Trump. Some people, in this Braver Angels is perfect, that they can't even talk to us because we don't reason.
So you'd like to see a little bit more openness for dialogue between people who disagree, conversation
And admitting that things were taken too far. The beautiful lady that spoke the other night from Illinois, I forgot her name.
Amani Adrain. She's a blue, and she's on the Braver Angels of Color Advisory Council. She spoke at our Hold America Together gathering.
Yeah, just a sweet person. But even her, she could not hold back from saying, if the crowd was black, they would have been killed. That narrative should not come anywhere close to talking about what happened at the Capitol. Race should not be talked at all about what happened. What happened at the Capitol, the violence was abhorrent, but the people protesting were protesting as Americans, and they were protesting on a constitutional basis, David, because the electoral votes have a process to be challenged. They can be overturned by a vote in the House and the Senate. And our country has a whole process that keeps us running, even up to January 20th. If there is not a duly elected president, the House Speaker takes over. There is nothing undemocratic or dangerous to democracy about what was done in the past 60 days to try to find out what happened in this election. Nothing.
Let me ask
David,
you
could
both.
I answer that question instead?
Yeah.
Could I answer the neighbor's
Sure,
question?
yeah, go for it. And then I
Okay.
also,
Sorry, David.
no, and I also want to invite you both to think about, so Chrissy, go ahead and answer that. And Tom, in your remarks, you focus mostly on what you would like to see from people on the other side in terms of moving forward together. I want to invite you both also to reflect on what you would like to see from your own side in terms of moving forward together. So go ahead, Chrissy.
Okay. And I've, the best thing that the best tools that I have received through Braver Angels, my time with Braver Angels, is that for the past 2 years, I've been able to see humanity on the opposite side of politics. I realize that there is a human being on that side, and it's not, I think the first thing that people need to do is they need to check how much time they spend on media, first of all. I believe that there's a show called The Social Dilemma on Netflix that explains how it's affecting our brains. And I think, first of all, people need to turn off or limit their input and start looking around and seeing people as human again. Dave Rubin and Ben Shapiro are two guys I listen to. They're both Jewish. One is kind of, I think, more culturally Jewish, and one is very reverently Jewish. And one is gay and married in the sight of our nation's rules. And Dave Rubin, he was able to say that, I just know that my friendship with Ben, it just stops at this point. And so they are able to see what they have in common and what they both care about and what they both value. And then when it comes to that particular issue where they branch off, they just agree to disagree. But since trying to talk to friends and neighbors about this past week, I feel like I've been dehumanized. I feel like my faith has been put to question. Like one woman said some really vicious things and then followed it with, "I'll be praying for you." Thanks. See them as human. Ask them why they voted, and ask them why they voted and ask them to talk about policies. There we go. Ask them to talk about the policies that they care about. Ask them to answer why they voted Trump and why they vote Republican without using Donald Trump's name. Without using people's names. See if they can communicate what matters to them. And I bet they'll find a lot more common
ground. And Tom, I want to go back to you. Anything about your own side that you would like to see, so the conservative or Republican side, anything from your side that you would like to see in terms of moving forward together?
Yeah, like Chrissy said, stop listening to social media. And if I would have known it, my sister, she had alert every time Trump tweeted. If I would have known that, I would have told her, stop immediately. Do not do that. But to my conservative folks out there, especially those on the fringe, stop listening to people who yell at you. Stop listening to people who are screaming about their guns being taken away and just screaming about it. Listen to people who talk calmly and talk with people on the other side, and turn off the stuff where they're screaming at you. I cannot listen to it, but I share this. I'm an NPR listener, and I used to listen to Wait, Don't Tell Me, but even that has gotten so politically twisted, where they're laughing at us as Trump voters, that I just couldn't listen to it anymore. But on our side, stop listening to people yelling at you. And like Chrissy said, the dialogue between the red and the blue needs to leave President Trump totally out of it. because it should be about policy. President Trump was not us. What the Trumpism was us. Bring back America, bring the jobs back here, strong economy, policies that were working. President Trump had the most favorable rating of any president. A majority of Americans thought the past 4 years were great for them. Their lives improved prior to COVID. The media will not mention any of that.
Let me ask you both in closing here. We're about at the end of our time together. You both are Braver Angels members. Tom, you are joined just as of yesterday, and you reached out to the Braver Angels website after you participated in the January 6th protests and heard about the Hold America Together gathering, and you reached out to us, and you're now a member. And Chrissy, you've been a dedicated member since at least 2018. So why are you both Braver Angels members? Why are you here? Why are you involved in this work?
Chrissy, I can start out if you want.
Go ahead.
Shout out to my cousin, who is a Democrat in Lidditz, for introducing me to Braver Angels. I still haven't asked her how she found out about them, but she was the one who introduced me to you guys, and I am so excited to participate because this program needs to spread like wildfire around this country. Reds and blues need to be sitting down and talking until a majority of this country is healed. That's the only way the healing is going to take place, is talking and for Republicans to see that Democrats don't see them as monsters like they saw President Trump. That and listening, my wife's telling me, and listening. I tell people I don't have the emotional room for division and hatred. I'm a parent of an only child who has severe special needs. I know isolation. I know discrimination. I know harassment. I don't have emotional room for division and hatred and conspiracy theories. I've got enough work just taking care of my child with special needs. So please stay away from this stuff about labeling it as racist and Trump is bad, so we can't, set that aside. Let's talk about policies. Let's talk about the pain that has been inflicted on us and the pain inflicted on you as well.
Well said. Chrissy.
What got me to join Braver Angels? Was that it?
Yes, and why are you still here today?
I joined Braver Angels because a neighbor who was blue invited me to look into it, and she ended up not making it to the first annual convention, but I did. And while I was there, I met some really, really nice blue people, and I learned that it helps me to not hate back. Helps me to not hate people back. That was the venom that was in my city toward President Trump during the first 2 years of his time in office was so reactive and mean. And still, again, a lot of this political correctness pressure was there as well. And so being involved with Braver Angels helps me to not hate. And it reminds me that there is just another person on the other side of the table who, kind of like what you said, Tom, has a family, has a job, has a lot of other things they have to give their energy and their emotions to. And yeah. And there's a Federalist NewsHour episode. There's a lady named Emily who's interviewed it starts out, it's called The Tipping Point, but something that she really found a universal theme as she went around interviewing people the day of the march was that a lot of people were just saying, I don't know who to trust anymore. I don't know who to trust. And I would say I agree. And I try my best to put my ultimate trust in God and what he brings into my life. But I still get really, really scared when I hear some people talking and don't know if I have the clout to press through it. But I think trust is a big issue. See people as a human and be a trustworthy person too. Watch what you say. Watch what you say to and about other people.
I think that's a great note for us to end on, Chrissy. Rebuilding trust, building trust in the first place with each other, right? That is acting as trustworthy people with each other, Republicans, Democrats, independents. That is a big part of what we are seeking to do at Braver Angels. And if you're out there listening today, red, blue, other, something else, we invite you to join us in this work of being in conversation with people like Chrissy and Tom and Blues who aren't here today and others. The work of building trust with each other, the work of talking and listening to each other, as Tom said, getting to know each other, building those relationships so that we find out about, Tom, that you're a stay-at-home dad with a special needs son, and Chrissy, your story. That is what we're about here at Braver Angels. And so if you believe in what we're doing, go to braverangels.org, become a member. You can click on support us and join Chrissy and Tom and thousands of others in this work. And we welcome your feedback on this podcast episode and on the whether you're red, blue, or other. Send us an email, media@braverangels.org. What did you think about this conversation? We take compliments, criticisms, and questions alike. We want to keep the conversation going. So until next time, let's hold America together.